Stay!
Welcome to another episode of Top 5 with Nick. This week I want to go over video game stories. Stories are what I consider to be one of the most important factors in what makes a great video game. Today the guests with me are Kieran Marchant.
Hey, it's me again.
And Paul James of player2.net.au fame.
So I'm apparently the one that ruined Platt because I used big words. I'll try to lessen that impact this episode.
No, you make Platt so much better. You improve Platt. You just, .net.au. Nah, just make it .net or something,
I'll get on it.
Alright, I'm going to start today with a very special guest of Paul. What is your first video game story?
And we're counting down from 5 to 1, right? If we've got them in order.
It's up to you. If you got them in order, that's up to you. Yeah.
I'm gonna start with what I've got a top 5, so I'll start with number 5. And I guess it's probably good timing for it because the sequel comes out somewhere within the period of this episode going live.
This comes out in like 2 months.
Oh, okay. Maybe not. I'm talking.
It
about
came out a while ago.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the original Ni no Kuni.
Yep.
So that had me from the first half hour with... How spoilerish do we want to go here?
Go full spoilers.
Full spoilers.
The fact that, like, the whole scene with Oliver drowning, Oliver being the little boy that you play throughout the course of the entire game.
Yep.
He's drowning out there. His mum kind of dives out, rescues him, and then after rescuing him, so she didn't drown or anything like that. After that, when they're all on the shore and everyone's kind of collecting themselves, she has a heart attack and dies.
Jesus.
Which was, like a really kind of shocking thing. They'd really done a fantastic job of setting up that family dynamic in a very short space of time, and had already got me to care about Oliver, his mum, and kind of anyone else that was important to him. And then that moment came along and just knocked me off my feet. Sorry. And from there, like they lent on it just enough. It wasn't overplayed throughout the course of the game going forward, because at that point on, the fantasy elements start to creep in. It becomes your traditional JRPG in many respects. Yep. But they lent on that just enough that they didn't overplay it, and they didn't lessen its impact. But they just reminded you enough of what Oliver's drive was throughout the course of the adventure that it kept me motivated the whole way through, because outside of that, the JRPG, the fantasy element was fairly typical, I guess, of what you'd expect from a JRPG.
Yep.
But that consumed everything for me in the end and just drove me the whole way through the experience. What is a very long experience.
Is his drive is he like somehow trying to save his mother or bring his mother back or something like that?
Well, yeah, there's... so the whole concept of the original Ni no Kuni is that you've kind of got like a doppelganger sort of in this alternate world.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And the initial drive was, well, your mum in the other world, in this world of Ni no Kuni, is a really important figure within this thing. She is alive.
Okay.
And maybe you can... you manipulate the magic and the way everything works there to somehow bring her back in your world.
Yep.
Which, without getting too spoiled, it does, there's a lot of obstacles in the way, and will they, won't they kind of emerges. But that whole driving factor really kept me motivated and engaged the entire way through the experience. So I loved it for that reason.
Yeah, with Ni no Kuni, I don't know, I think I tried to force myself to play it in between other stuff I was playing, and it just never really grabbed me. But I think I may have to go back, because it's a black spot in my gaming history. Did you ever play it, Kieran?
I'm very much the same. It was one of those games where I didn't give it the time it deserved. And there was a problem, because I remember playing it through until the first time you leave the fantasy world and you return to the real world.
Yep.
And there's a boss fight there. And I didn't grind enough before I went there, and the boss fight absolutely panned me like 5 or 6 times in a row. And I just kind of put it down and never went back, which is a common theme for me in JRPGs, where I'll often rush through a JRPG, forgetting it's a JRPG, getting to a point and be like, crap, I have not grinded enough to... And then I ended up going back all the time. I always end up going back a couple of weeks later. Just never gone back to Ni no Kuni. And that's looking with Ni no Kuni 2, it's one of those things where I'm kind of like, even though the two stories are apparently not connected, I'm like, I kind of want to go back and give Ni no Kuni 1 a go first before I jump into 2.
Yeah, Sony, feel free to remaster that and put it on the PS4 at any time.
I was surprised that they didn't.
I was quite
surprised they didn't do it.
I'm really surprised. I mean, like you said, they're not connected, but it would have been a great opportunity to raise the profile of the original and help then in turn boost the profile of the sequel. And we'll see how that goes sales-wise and reception-wise. But
well, from what I remember, it wouldn't be too hard to remaster it, because it's all cel-shaded type stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, Kieran, what's your first video game story?
My first video game story is my favourite story from probably one of my favourite stories of character growth I've seen, and that is The Walking Dead Season 1 from Telltale. Because
good choice.
I was taking it now because I was like, there's got to be at least be on both people's list, or it's just I'm taking it now because.
Do I need to scramble to come up with a new one?
It's up to you. It's up to you if you want to.
I came up with spares last time, but I'm like, that game was the first game that truly made me care about a character as much as I care about Clementine. That character was just so important to me, and just the journey you went on as Lee with Clementine, and growing up and seeing her become like a more mature child within this ridiculously messed up world was such a raw and emotional journey. Seeing you lose friends, lose characters, and just that final scene between her and Lee is just so heartbreaking. Just so goddamn heartbreaking of all the things that happen. And then even like how it stretches beyond season 1, how it goes into season 2 and season 3, and I'm still seeing these effects and these choices that I made on Clementine as Lee come back and have more and more of an effect. It was something I'd never experienced before in a game, and it was something really special. And I think with the next season being Clementine's probably last season, it's gonna be pretty tough.
Yep.
That scene with Lee and Clem at the end there, that was the first video game scene sequence, anything that's made me sob like a big old man, baby.
Yep.
It was just one of those things, like it was a choice that I didn't want to make. I knew I had to, and you could, Telltale knew that and preyed on that a little bit. Well, not preyed on it, but like they gave you the options to kind of translate what you were feeling into the game there, but ultimately had to make the decision, did it. And then to your point, like that scene alone carried me through. The writing of season 2 is good, but not nearly as good as season 1.
Yeah.
And the same deal for the third season. But it was that first season alone that's just, I've bought into anything they do involving Clementine. Like,
yeah, this is our character. This is, it's almost like having, I wouldn't know, or I don't think any of us would know about having kids, but it's like having a kid that you've seen grow up. And okay, Paul's double checking. What's that behind you, Paul? Quick, run!
no, sorry, but nothing here.
Nothing good. It's like having that grow up. And there was a moment in, I don't know if you played through season 3. There's a moment in season 3 where you go back to a flashback of her and Lee together in the caravan that just really hits home and stuff. It's just, it's really good storytelling.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed my time with season 1, but I don't think it didn't affect me as it affected a lot of other people. I don't know why. It's just like, I think it was a fine game and a fine story, but it just didn't resonate with me as much. So I never had the drive to go back and play seasons 2 or 3. So yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. All right, my first one is The Witcher 3.
Oh, damn it, you lot. I've lost 3 of my 5 already, and we're not even through my... Like, I've only spoken about one of them.
We can share. I'll share with you.
I've got some reserves.
Yeah, The Witcher 3, like, having read the books as well, being attached to all those characters and being like a culmination of everything up to that point, but as a standalone thing as well, the best thing about it is you're playing as Geralt, and Geralt is essentially a supporting character because the game is Ciri's story. It's all about Ciri's growth and Ciri saving the world. Like, you're not put in the position of trying to save the world, the universe, whatever. You are supporting the character doing that as well. So it's kind of a subversion on a lot of RPG tropes and stuff like that. And just the way the characters interact and the story and the way they grow and tear apart or come together, it's just phenomenal storytelling, in my opinion.
No, I absolutely agree. But then on top of that, and you're talking about the story of the two characters there and how they cross over. What also impressed me was the world design and how that bled into the narrative.
Definitely, yep.
Like all the little side quests you do, they're self-contained, fantastic stories that are equal to, in some cases, equal to what you'd get from a full release from some other AAA
even
studio.
better. Yeah.
But then the way those stories then bled into the overall one as well and had an impact was it was an incredible effort by CD Projekt Red.
Yes.
They set a benchmark in terms of, well, in a lot of ways, but for the sake of what we're talking about here in terms of storytelling in an open world.
Yep. Yeah,
because I've not seen a game do it.
No, it's a 10 out of 10 in my opinion. Like, it's going to be hard to top that. What are your experiences with The Witcher, Kieran?
And I'm really short on The Witcher. Like, I have not put enough time into it just because it's one of those games where I've gone back to, and I just need to sit down for a month and play it and put in time and but go in a completely different way than I would normally go into games, because I burnt myself out on the game being like, ooh, piece of candy, as I walked around and grabbed everything, where, I don't think I ever, like, I didn't even go to there's like the witches in the forest.
Yeah.
I didn't do that quest.
Oh, wow.
I didn't do like I didn't even get that far. I think the furthest I got was you met the witch with the blonde hair in the random tower.
Yeah, Kira
and
Metz.
then like met her and like her little quest and stuff, but I didn't do much after that, and it was just because I got lost playing Gwent and some side quests.
That's
and
the problem we've all had.
Yeah, like I just did that, and then, but reflecting on it and starting to read, like I think the book I've gone back to the most over the last couple months has been the original short stories from The Witcher.
Yeah.
And Geralt as a character is one of my favourite written characters, and that's me saying something without really have seen half of the game. Like, I played through Witcher 2 and just not playing through Witcher 3, but he's one of my favourite written characters because often in these RPGs, the main character or the character you're playing as is like the least written character, because they want you to they want you to
impose your character.
Yeah, they want you to feel like you're that character. And The Witcher goes, no, this isn't like your story, you're not in that shoes, but this is, you're playing through as Geralt. Geralt is a very he's a firm character, he has his beliefs, he has his position in the world. Now, see it through, and really, you get to make the choice, but there is, it's not quite, what do you want to do? It's, which Geralt is your Geralt, and that's my favourite part of the story writing for that game.
Definitely. Alright, Paul, what's your next one?
Well, my next one would have been Witcher 3. So I'm almost tempted to go with the high profile of the two that I've got next, because I feel like it could get snapped up. I'll go with Chrono Trigger. Now, the thing that, this is not one that necessarily tugged on heartstrings or any of that sort of thing. It actually just made me feel awesome throughout.
Yeah.
And that's that's a coupling of a few things, but the branching narrative, how it all connected, the multiple different endings, and it's not your Mass Effect sort of multiple endings with three different, ultimately you get funneled back to one point and then you make a few choices, which is not just, for all that we rag on Mass Effect 3, most of the Telltale games do that. There's a lot of other games that kind of, you go off in a funnel and you spread off in a bunch of different directions, but ultimately it culminates in one key point that is the same for everyone. And then you make one final decision. Chrono Trigger was one of those things, and way before any of those games that I just spoke about, it had its broken up paths, and you could go off in any which way you wanted, and the game could end very early if you managed to make it through that court case at the beginning, or depending on whether you beat Lavos at what time, and all those sorts of different, like the game could branch off in a million different ways, and I just thought it was top-notch storytelling at such an early stage for the medium.
Because that's a PS1 game, wasn't it?
No, that was a Super Nintendo game.
It was Super Nintendo, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Don't ever play this PC Steam port that's come out. It's trash. But the story in it's still good.
Yeah, that's another blank slate in my memory. Like, I've never played a Chrono Trigger game or anything like that. What about you, Kieran? Have you ever played one?
You almost make it sound like there's lots of them.
I've never touched it. I've looked at them a couple times. It's one of those games where I feel like in my life and my taste of gaming's, there's almost, I can't physically play every JRPG. And I think Chrono Trigger is just one of those that I've just been like, I can't really put that RPG into my repertoire with, Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. And that's why I've stayed away from Persona 5, other than the whole streaming bullcrap. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't have the time.
And to be honest, what you just said, Paul, has been the first thing that's ever even remotely inclined me to look its direction. Like, from ancillary glances, it just looked like another JRPG for me. Like, I never had a deep look at it, but now that you've said it, I might try and find a copy.
Well, I think what you'll find, so I obviously spoke about the different paths, but each individual character's story arc is also incredible. Like, whether it's the bloody robot that you find in the future, who's he's called Robo. That was not so original, the naming there. But whether it's his story and about how he has just been made to obey all this time and finally gets shaken from his slumber and comes out and helps you, or whether it's the frog that you find that was this dedicated knight. That comes, there's, and then the Chrono himself. Each individual character arc is incredibly planned out and incredibly executed, and then they all kind of come together in this big overall thing that I was talking about. Yeah. So they've done an incredible job.
What about you, Kieran? What is your next one?
What's my next one? Jumbling around. I'm saving my niche picks for the last couple. So let's potentially steal from somebody.
Let's go niche, because you might steal mine.
Oh, okay, I'll go niche. And this isn't as well. It's niche for me. And if you listen to any of our other gaming stuff, you probably know that I love this game with all my heart and soul. But my next pick is Soul Reaver: Legacy of Kain.
Yep.
This game is it's my jam. It is. I have so many memories of playing this as a kid, and just the storytelling. It's so gothic and weird that I would really love to play it again on a current gen console. Please Sony. Just having this character Raziel, and you have Kain, who has had his own games already. The people know this Kain character, and just Raziel's fall from grace from being this new thing that Kain's not cool with, and seeing the build up of that game, and even just the forward movement of going from Soul Reaver 1 to 2 and 3. It gets so messed up with time travel and stuff, but just at the raw edge of this game is two people like Raziel and Kain trying to understand each other and trying to grow and find that there is a position for both of them in the world.
So, did he just wake up one morning with wings, or did he always have wings and kept them hidden?
No, he pretty much. So the start of Soul Reaver is him presenting to Kain that he has had these wings form on him.
Yeah, just overnight or what?
I don't know if it was overnight. I don't think there's a whole. Just wakes up one morning. Holy crap! This bed's got really uncomfortable. This is some lumpy bullshit here. What is going on?
I've never thought about it before. Now it's just so odd.
I think the council, because that opening scene is Raziel and all of his brothers coming back to see Kain. Yeah. I think that's a council that only meet every X amount of years or something. Okay. So that was the first time since they formed. That Kain had seen him.
That series has come I hold a lot of that to bonding with my brother, because we both love those games, and we spent a lot of time playing those games, like just going back and forth in the PS2. But yeah, like I enjoy the story, but I wouldn't say it's up there for me personally. But yeah,
I think a lot of it is for me. It's nostalgia for me with just looking at it. But then I recently reread through the plot, and there's so much. So this character was once this character, who's really this character, and all this stuff. And I was reading back, going, "How did I get this when I was a kid?"
the giant eyeball tentacles living underwater near the pillars.
Yeah, like how am I supposed to understand this now? But I would love another chance to get into that world because it was such an amazing place to explore and a story to experience.
Did you ever touch on it? It is, yeah.
It's a black mark?
I feel like even when it was prominent, it was niche.
Yeah. Which was really weird. I didn't realise that until quite recently when I started banging the drum about it. It was, it's a very niche game that a lot of people on the PlayStation 1 did not get to.
Yeah, a lot of people that you're the first person that I know, other than my brother, that know about it, to be honest, or had even played it. So, yeah. Alright. Moving on. My next one is Life is Strange Before the Storm. I know it's only a recent one, but this game, the story of that game just resonated me with. Like, it was a toss-up between the original one and this one for me, but I feel this one all the way through was solid for me and resonated me with more, whereas opposed to the first one, it being slightly paranormal, and I didn't like the last episode. Like, this is why Before the Storm took it out for me. Like, I know it's weird, I was never a teenage girl, but it gives me nostalgia from when
I heard otherwise at one point. What the hell?
That's the cutout for this episode. I was never a teenage girl.
But it gives me nostalgia and longing for being back in high school and having those kind of relationships with people and school relationships and stuff like that. It just took me back, and even the melodrama that they go through just hit home for me. It was such a perfectly crafted story for me that, yeah, it's just up there for me. I really, really enjoyed it.
So, I don't know, this might be the first one where, rather than maybe it being a black mark, I might just openly... Well, no, I'm not going to say I openly disagree because it's subjective. But,
no, that's fair.
They had a good story in Life is Strange, and presumably in the sequel. I didn't play... Oh, sorry, not the sequel, but the prequel.
The prequel, yeah.
I couldn't get... I got through the game because I was reviewing it for the original game. But I could not get over the number of times the word hella was used. I wanted to take the screen and, I'm using a little monitor right now, and just smash it into my head. And like you, I was never a teenage girl, but I couldn't. They made it so tough, and because of everything was too much. That was what burnt me out on the game. And
that's fair.
When Before the Storm got announced, I couldn't shake this feeling that they were going to be doing the same. And I've heard so many glowing things about it, but I also heard so many glowing things about the first season. It's
much the same. So if Life is Strange graded you, you'd probably get graded by Before the Storm.
Yeah, because I knew that the themes and what they were trying to say was really important, and I totally understood how it would resonate with people.
Yeah.
And the concept of what they're trying to say really resonated with me, but the way they delivered it didn't, and that's what killed it for me. And it was a real shame because, like I said, I absolutely adored what they were trying to do, and I just couldn't get over the execution.
I think also with Before the Storm, why it resonates so much for me was after finishing the first one and then hearing the news of that they were doing a prequel, my immediate gut reaction was like, no, I don't want this. This isn't needed. Why are they doing this? Just go off and do something else. But after playing it, it just won me over, and I was like, it was the thing I needed the most that I didn't think I needed.
Yeah, that's fair.
And from my recollection, I don't think Hella is even said once in Before the Storm.
Yeah, it is.
It is?
It is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
maybe I just...
I
maybe I just put it out of my mind.
Because I think she learns the word hella in that game. Like, the word hella is introduced to her in Before the Storm, if I remember rightly. So.
Also, it also makes Chloe a more relatable character for me, where she's not as wild and over the top and unrelatable as she is in Life is Strange, the original as well, I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
Makes it more grounded, yeah.
That aspect of Chloe with the original one, that didn't bother me in the least. And I guess maybe, like, I'm a teacher outside of this business, and like in that classroom, there's 25 different individuals, and they're all carrying different baggage. And
Yeah.
like, I've started at a new place this year. This is my first year at the school, so I don't know any of those kids from a bar of soap, but I know
Yeah.
each and every one of them carrying something different in, and I can't pretend to know that. And if I might have got a little bit of attitude day one. I didn't really,
Yeah.
because I'm a gun. But
You shouldn't be saying that around schools.
I didn't say I have one. And this is not America. Without getting too political. But it was one of the, like, it's one of those things where you just can't pretend to know what
Yeah.
they might or mightn't be going through, and you just kind of be the best you can be with those people and support them through whatever. So that didn't bother me when it came to the original Life is Strange, because
Yeah.
we're getting dropped into this world. We're missing all that prequel context or even anything
Yeah.
before that as well. And you just kind of have to accept the person for what they are.
Yeah.
So that didn't bother me. It was just the hella. And how everything was so casual, like I just couldn't.
Hella annoying.
Yeah, more or less. That's it. I'm out of this podcast. See ya.
Good thing you're not within punching distance. Alright.
Yeah.
Paul, what's your next one?
So the only one that I've got left from my top 5 is The Last of Us.
Yep.
And I guess, does that register on either of your things?
That very nearly made my list.
I didn't put it on my list because it's too commonly seen as a great story for me. Because I was like, people know it's a great story.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I don't know.
So I guess, yeah, look, that's a reasonable point. So I think the things I'm going to say will be fairly, I guess, expected by anyone listening here.
This is a personal list show, so
but it is a
if it's
personal
your
list,
top
yeah.
5.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't listen to
intro scene-
Kieran.
That intro scene, and what happens with
Yep.
Joel and his daughter is shocking. I guess in the same sort of way that I guess elicited the same sort of reaction that Nino Cooney did, with the way an important character died there at the beginning too. The context slightly different,
Yep.
but same sort of response.
A big
And then
kick in the
as you go
guts.
from there, obviously there's the Left Behind DLC that kind of focuses more on Ellie, and that was really powerful for what that was. But in terms of the main experience, it was you could visibly see the bond between Ellie and Joel solidifying as the experience continued.
Yep.
Because they really disliked one another at the beginning, maybe borderline hated one another at the beginning. But life has thrown them together for whatever reason. And at the beginning it was clear, look, I've just got to deal with it regardless. It is what it is. This sucks. I don't like this guy or girl, but whatever. But then through some shared experiences, that relationship built, and you could see it building in terms of how they might have to work together, or because something horrible happened and one had to save the other or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible execution.
Yeah.
And then obviously the payoff at the end, which, I mean, is divisive in terms of how people interpret that ending, but that's down to the Joel that you've kind of built as you go.
That's
Or
definitely
the idea of Joel in your head and what would he or would he not do.
Yeah.
It was just
I'd probably do the same thing in his position.
yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't get much of a say in the matter, but
No, but yeah.
the lie and all that sort of stuff at the end was important as well.
Yeah.
Um,
It also
they
leaves
nailed
it leaves it on a questionable ending as well, like whether what happens here. Do they still have the same relationship going forward? Do they what? Like, it also makes a sequel so much more interesting as well.
Yeah, and I know there was a lot of pushback about, well, not a lot, but some pushback from some about the sequel when Part 2 got announced.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I can understand why, because it was a it certainly appeared as though it was a very self-contained story. I'd be really curious to know if there was
Yeah.
any decisions being made in the background at Naughty Dog that's like, we deliberately want to keep this open enough for us to continue it, or is this just the story that we've written and it so happens that it's provided us an opportunity to continue?
Definitely.
I don't know. I'd love for that story to get out, just to know what the thinking was at the end of the original Last of Us, to see what decisions were being made about that narrative. But the whole experience was incredible, and
I agree wholeheartedly.
That was my number 2 behind The Walking Dead.
Kieran, you exploit.
What? I was just doing what I do. And for me, Last of Us, I love it because it's not about... what so many games is about is the fight between good and evil.
Yeah.
It's, it's real people trying to survive and trying to stay alive and protect the things that they hold dear and cherish in this world. For me, I got to The Last of Us pretty late. I only played Last of Us about a year and a bit ago.
Yeah.
And I somehow managed to avoid spoilers for this game.
That's
and I don't know
incredible
how.
effort.
I know. I don't know how because I actually got told by a friend that Ellie dies. And I was like, I played through it and I was like, wait, what? Like, that never happened. Bullshit. And so I think my favorite bit of storytelling is the winter section.
Yep.
Or the winter section because it was such a surprise. It was such a surprise for me because it just wasn't expecting that, and to see that world from that character's position is a very interesting thing to do. Changes the gameplay a whole lot, and changed the world you were in quite a lot. So it was interesting, and I love how flawed the characters are. I love how flawed and real those characters are. Even like the scene everybody touches on is the goddamn giraffes. Everybody touches on the giraffes because it's such a innocent scene before what's about to happen. So I'm interested to see what happens in part 2. I really desperately hope somebody took the time to teach fucking Ellie how to swim. But
I'm sure they'll make a joke about it in the game anyway.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so, because fuck those pellets.
Yeah, because it'll be, hey, you still don't know how to swim? What the hell?
What the hell?
As you're getting more pellets.
What the fuck? What have you been doing this entire time?
Like, you had time to get tattoos, but you didn't learn how to swim. Come on.
Yeah,
Yep.
damn it.
No.
What are you doing with your life?
Fuck. Terrible.
Right, Kieran. Speaking of what are you doing with your life, what's your next one?
Nick, would you kindly let me talk about BioShock now? Because BioShock, the story of that game, is so, like, it's been gone over that many times, but it's just so divisive. It's so... Nick, you're looking at me really funny and it's weird.
Would you
That's
kindly tell me more?
I would... Yes, I'll have to. Especially going back and knowing what Would You Kindly means, that game is just a great second experience because you see all these small things and things that just seem like a game mechanic, like, your weapons being put down when he says it, when he's like, would you kindly put your weapons away and stuff. Just comes off the first playthrough as, it's just like a little cutscene to show you what a big daddy and the little sisters look like. Oh yeah. No, that's him controlling you, and this whole world of Rapture is such a amazing and like just dystopian world that is there to explore, and the stories behind it. Even just that little mechanical thing of being able to listen to audio diaries while you're playing the game, like you're not having to sit there in a pause menu, grew the story for me and helped me understand this world a lot more, so I cared more. I remember, for me, the story of BioShock I don't care about until like the second half of the game.
Yep.
Like, I always remember the first time I played it, the first part of the game, I was like, okay, sure. I'm running through, I'm killing things, I'm getting these plasmids, this is all cool. And then the game all of a sudden hits its second wind, and it's just so good for the rest of the way.
I think I have to go back and replay it, because when I played it, I enjoyed it, but it didn't... I either wasn't paying attention or wasn't... Like, I didn't appreciate what I was playing through as well. Like, everyone has all these glowing opinions and memories with it, but like I said, I mustn't have been paying attention or just wasn't in the right frame of mind to appreciate what it was doing.
So, I'm obviously a big fan of the original Bioshock, but so what did that leave you? I assume you've played Infinite.
I started to, but I didn't like it.
So what is that kind of in terms of the narrative sense, or just overall?
Just the gameplay I didn't like. It just didn't feel like Bioshock for me. Like
I was just curious, given what we've just spoken about when it comes to the original Bioshock, how Infinite, because Infinite kind of explains a lot of things and links a few things together from Bioshock 1 and 2, as well as Infinite. What
I did go for a
some of those
spoiler
key
dive.
moments have on the original? There's always a lighthouse, and there's always this, and then and even what was the DLC called?
Which one?
The one that sees you go to Rapture.
Oh,
I've forgotten.
Below the Sea or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Did the Bioshock Infinite experience have any bearing on your appreciation for the original game at all?
I don't think I got far enough into Bioshock Infinite to have an impression on me from the original Bioshock, because I don't know if Bioshock 2 plays into it at all, because I skipped that one for whatever reason. But
Bioshock 2 is really good.
Yeah, I want to go back and play it. But yeah, I did do a spoiler dive, like just reading about Bioshock Infinite and how it plays into it, but I don't know.
You need a degree to understand half of that shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that shit in Infinite that I was like, went over my head. And it took me a good like portion of time to go back and read everything, because I was like,
That's why it took so long for the game to come out, because Ken Levine himself was trying to get his head around what was going on.
Get his head around what was going on, because the ending of that game is just so bizarre.
Breaks about 50 fourth walls and still requires you to, internet dive to make sense of it afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. All right, that was
Nick,
yours, Kieran.
what's your next one?
My next one is Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, baby. All right.
Yes. I played this when I was very young, and the impression it left on me was like, this can be done, like how other people have that kind of revelation with other video games. This goes, this can be done with video games. It can tell this kind of story. It can, and even going back, replaying it, it also subverts what a lot of games haven't done like either. Like, you are a disgruntled guy, like, you don't want any part of this at the beginning, like, you're just there to get your paycheck, and then you solidly get invested in it, and then you find out, spoilers, like, you are a clone of somebody else, that's not your memories, all this kind of, like, I don't know, like, subversion of common plots, and, like, obviously it has its JRPG melodrama and all that kind of stuff, but just the intricate story that it tells, and the characters and the world, and, like, you go back to Barrett's town, and, like, everyone hates him for what happened to the town, even though it was hardly his fault. But yeah, like, it just resonated with me, and it's hard. Another game hasn't knocked it off. I don't know if it's solely from nostalgia as well, but it's just always remained up there as a personal top story for me.
Final Fantasy 9 is the jam. That is my favourite game of all time, though, admittedly. But its story, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't quite match the 5 that we've spoken about.
Yeah.
Focusing on Final Fantasy 7, a bit like you, I played through that and came away from it going, this is what video game stories are capable of.
Yep.
And yes, it did make the list, because over the years, more and more developers have put more and more time and effort into the stories they're telling, and we're getting better and better narratives. But it really, and 6 did a fantastic job of it as well. And there was obviously a bunch of games I spoke about, Chrono Trigger on the Super Nintendo and all those sort of things. There were some fantastic examples of storytelling. But Final Fantasy, in terms of its breadth and the scope, really... And I guess, part of that was the tech and the fact that PS1 could, going over multiple discs and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, definitely.
But it really set a bit of a tone for what was possible going forward. And it set a bar that few reached through that generation, and still plenty of games fail to reach these days. Crisis Core, that came out for the PSP, was a fantastic add-on to that.
Another one of those games that just makes Final Fantasy VII just even better. It's
Definitely.
just another piece of, as we said with Bioshock and Infinite, increasing people's appreciation for Bioshock. Crisis Core was just just took Final Fantasy VII and pushed it even further, and just, oh my god, there's nothing. That game that game was probably one of the first games that you could have truly unique playthroughs, very limited unique playthroughs, but you could have truly unique playthroughs, like such little things as taking Barrett on the fucking date in the Golden Saucer if you did the right things, or there's so much in that game that's just little things that change, and it was such a developing story. And I don't know about you guys, but I'd never experienced a character death like Aeris before in a game.
No, likewise.
I'm the same.
Happened, and it was like, oh shit, right. And then you got to the next disc, and you're like, wait, I just spent so fucking long grinding that character, and you've taken it away? How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah.
So on subsequent playthroughs, has anyone else gone, well, I'm just not going to bother leveling her up?
Yeah, I've done it.
Every
where
time.
I'm just like, fuck you, Aeris. Go chill somewhere else. I don't need to put time into you. You're going to die.
It also was at a time where you could name the characters, so I was young enough and I renamed all the characters, like my friends from school and whatnot, and seeing the character with that name die, which I imposed my friend onto, is like hit even harder. But yeah, and I think also why it resonates with me, like also the world it is too. Like you think it's this dark urban thing, and then you think like you're going to be there the whole game, and then you bust out of it, and there's a whole other world for you to go and explore, and the more story to be told in and whatnot, and just the melding of kind of like traditional fantasy with high-tech kind of stuff like that as well. It's just all come together in a perfect storm to just capture me, enrapture me. Alright, Paul, what's your next one?
Well, my 5's gone.
Yep.
Could I maybe start talking about some of the backups that I had?
You certainly can.
I haven't fleshed out any of my thoughts for these, so this could be a far
That's
more
fine.
open dialogue. But the first one I had was Resistance, and not specifically the first one, but just the 3 combined.
Yep.
It's Resistance, Fall of Man 2, then 3
Yep.
for the PS3. I don't mind myself a bit of alternate history.
No, I do too. Yep.
And they nailed this in every single conceivable way. I picked up the PS3 full price, $1,000 bloody Australian.
Yeah.
Ouch!
I got it for, me and my brother got it for Christmas.
Oh.
Admittedly, Game Traders, rest in peace, did a fantastic... No, sorry, it was Game, the old UK mob that came over here for a while. They did a fantastic deal where we got about $400 off for trading in the PS2 and only 10 games, whereas EB was asking for 20 games.
Bloody hell.
For the same level of discount.
Yeah.
And I then split the price with my mum in half. So
Yep.
things were looking pretty good. But that was the first game I played, and I must have played through that campaign 10 times, I reckon.
Yep.
Admittedly, there wasn't a huge amount going on the PS3 at the beginning.
I was going to say there was nothing else to do on the console.
Folklore
That
was
was
alright.
Motorstorm.
Yeah, that story. But Resistance, like I just being a sucker for alternate history, the story they were spitting there, I was hooked. And then when 2 and 3 came along, and there was more of a character focus in terms of what was going on with Hale through the sequel, his eventual death, how that picks up in the third game, and then the overall kind of war between humans and the Chimera. I was just into it from moment one, and I'm still gutted to this day that Sony, not necessarily Insomniac, because they are moving on to big things at the moment, but I'm gutted that Sony hasn't at the very least remastered it and put it on the PS4, but even entertained the possibility of going back to it, especially now that they don't have a first-person shooter on the platform, like an exclusive first-person shooter. Now that Killzone and Resistance were the two through the PS3 series life cycle, but now that Killzone is, I don't know, dead for the time being, whatever,
I guess so,
or dormant for the time being. Resistance,
It's
I
perfect
feel like
pickings,
there's just a golden opportunity there.
I also
because
loved
it does something a bit different.
I loved about it too was like, yeah, this alien technologically advanced civilization comes down and attempts to take over the world, but they're not overbearing. Like the humans are able to put up a resistance as well.
Yeah.
It's just like, and like you said, the alternate history gets me too. Like I love reading alternate history, like the Man from High Castle and stuff like that. It's just, yeah, I agree. It's up there. And in regards to first-person shooter stories too, it's up there as well. Where it stands out, where a lot of them are just paint by the numbers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So they did some awesome stuff there, and come on, Sony, get your act together. Let's make it happen.
Come on, Kieran. You've never played one, have you?
I've played it. I don't have any strong feelings tied to them. I remember, like, I didn't finish any of them, because during that time, my household was I had an Xbox 360 and my dad had a PS3. So,
Your dad was
was
cool
very... One. Yeah, my dad was the failure of the family, I'm going to call him, for that generation. He has his time. He has his time.
Xbox 360 fans, send me your Last of Us screenshots. I dare you.
Okay, I'll send it from my PS4. But so I did see Dad playing it, and I dabbled with it every now and then. But yeah, there's just not something I'm incredibly tied to, sadly.
Yep. All right, Kieran, what's your next one?
My next one, I'm gonna keep this one hella quick because we've already touched on it a little bit. Life is Strange. Life is Strange, for me, was a game that... It's interesting to see games in this game and the next game I'll talk about, my last game. The shift in storytelling, for me, is such a big and important thing in gaming that I loved it. It's probably my favourite time-travelling story that I've ever read or watched, because it's, even though it has this time travel element to it, it's so real, not realistic, but it's based in realism. Like, it's based in a place you could think about going, or you could see yourself in. And to see Chloe and Max and every character, like, to grow, and even having this Rachel Amber character that you know nothing really about, she gets talked about for the entire freaking game. That, like, the ending, the scenes in the secret room, just... It's so moving and so deep for me. And the interesting thing for me is, in a lot of these games, you'll find a large percentage of the community will always go with the moral choice, because we, as a human civilization, we're told to, follow our morals and to always do the right thing. If you talk to the community of this game, the large part of it have done the most immoral choice in the world for the last choice, and the moral choice is the wrong choice in their eyes. Like, I find that so amazing that people care so much about a character in a relationship that it puts them against a lot of their natural instincts and stuff. So it creates such a bond in that world that you are prepared to do something that I don't think any other game would really make you, not make you do, but just make you feel compelled that that's the better option.
And Paul couldn't wait for Chloe to cark it.
No. Paul was just
there was a choice, and I'm saving the world. Out you go.
yeah. Paul's just like, I'm saving the world. Sorry. Goodbye. I'm going to go look in an art gallery or some shit.
I'm hella going to miss you.
Oh, poor Chloe.
The reason why the original Life is Strange, as I touched on earlier, was that the last episode 5 just really marred the experience for me. It brought it down as a whole. I know it's not a very popular opinion. It was just too out there and so out of place for me.
There was that weird, I don't know. It did get really weird in some parts of episode 5. Now that you've mentioned it, I'm thinking about different parts of episode 5 that I've mentally blocked out. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that section.
Like you're sneaking through this maze void and
that
guy
I remember
is
all this.
It's just, I don't know, it's just too out there for me.
I kind of blocked, but I don't think that, for me, that doesn't affect the storytelling of the game too much. It's the story we got, and it was interesting choices that I made in.
I remember
Life is
sitting there for a
Strange.
good 45 minutes when you go back to the alternate past and Chloe's in the bed, and like I sat there for a
Yes.
good 45 minutes deciding what to do there.
Yep. No, I don't think I did it. Maybe I did. I don't know. That's a tough choice. That's probably one of the toughest choices any video game has ever asked you to make.
Yeah.
Because it's such a realistic choice.
It had
It's
such gravity for me.
it's
Alright. My next one is Metal Gear Solid 3. This game, and the reason I think it's up there for a lot of people is that it's a self-contained story when it comes to Metal Gear. Like, you could go into a blind and come out of it having the most amazing experience and story, not having to know all the bits and bobs and where everything fits in, and just it was just a cool like spy, like James Bond kind of theme, like that intro. It sets it up to be like kind of a 60s spy movie, almost like you're infiltrating, and I have a fascination with Soviet Russia, like even going in there, getting to interact with all that kind of stuff and the special forces, and like every character stands out as their each individual, and the growth of Snake throughout the story, and the subdiversion of Eva and Ocelot being a double agent and all that kind of stuff. It just boils down into being one of the best stories and Metal Gear stories of the whole series for me.
Just for me, it was only until maybe just before Phantom Pain when I really started jumping in. Like, I played all the other games except for 4 is the only one I've never touched.
Yep.
Before Phantom Pain came out, I decided to went back and read through some stuff just so I could have a bit of better understanding. I didn't realise that Naked Snake in that game is not the same Snake from the other games. Like, that is Big Boss and stuff.
Big Boss,
and I'm like, I have no idea. This is all news for me. And seeing the end scene of that game is so compelling, so moving in many ways for a game of that time, and even just the overall game itself, it's more of that crazy Kojima mechanics, more of those, the end where you can literally make him like win a boss fight by like
die from old age.
Yeah, you can make him die from old age. There's just that element in that game of ridiculousness that is so great, and the story of how that evolves, and Snake accepting what's happening and understanding that one thing has to happen for the world to be okay. So it's rough.
What about you, Paul? Do you have anything to do with Metal Gear?
I'm just looking towards the clouds to see if lightning's not going to strike me down, because the only Metal Gear game I've played is Ground Zeroes.
Ooh! Oh no, that's not good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really bad.
I don't know nearly enough about the Metal Gear thing. And I played Ground Zeroes because my intention was when Phantom Pain came out that I would play Phantom Pain. And then just life got in the way and I never got to it. So I've really been able to appreciate what's going on with that storytelling. But knowing how convoluted it is, and knowing how many hours I have in a day, a week, a year, I don't know when I'll actually get an opportunity to sit down and go, because I know I've got the Legacy Collection, the one on the PS3 that had everything up to that point on it. Like, I've got that sitting there, and it calls to me from time to time. Jay of Player 2 Patched fame, like, he insists that at some point we're going to do a Let's Play of some sort to make sure that I actually play the bloody game. Because he knows that once I get
strap
started...
into a room, Clockwork Orange style.
Of all of them, I would say
he knows that once I
play
get started,
3.
I'll be fine.
I would say play 3.
Yep.
Out of all of them, I would play number 3 because...
It'll be one of those things that once I get... Like, he'll probably get me started with the first, and then I'll just go.
Yeah.
He'll get me to play in sequential order, and I understand, that the stories kind of bounce around here, there, and everywhere. But it'd be one of those things where I'd play it in the order they were released, and In the similar way that we think about Star Wars, that we had 4,
Yep.
5, 6, and then it was 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I would still watch them 4, 5, 6, then 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, and
That's the
then
correct
7,
way.
8, 9, and whatever. I know obviously that doesn't make sense sequentially in terms of the story
Yeah.
they're telling, but that was how it came together. And I'm a
Yeah.
big boy, and I can comprehend these things.
I don't know.
Kojima's
I
crazy
don't know.
storytelling.
I don't know. It's
Well,
oh,
there
there's
was
just-
that period when I was a young girl. But,
Yeah, in my teenage years.
I never had that.
but yeah, so it was one of those. It's just one of those things that I, for whatever reason, just never got to.
Yep, that's
and
fair.
I know I need to rectify it, but I can
Yep.
appreciate what they've been doing.
Yep. All right. What's your last one, Paul?
That,
I'll throw. I mean, we're obviously in the reserves, but I'm going to throw Gone Home out there.
Yep.
Walking simulators, or if they're not particularly affectionately called that from time to time, they really rose to prominence because of this game and the story
Yep.
that they were telling and the way that they told it. Obviously, you can finish that game in, what's the record? Like 20 seconds, maybe even less?
Yeah, it's something ridiculous.
Like there's some
like that.
ridiculous
Yeah,
because
yeah.
once you've been through the experience, you know exactly where to go and you can just make
Yeah.
a beeline there. And some people even stumble upon it at the very beginning, and that's cool. But the experience of being able to walk through that house and learn of the story of the girls and the family and where everyone's gone and what's going on, and the fact that they managed to execute, not just in terms of the story, but in terms of the environment, the design, the sound, all that sort of stuff, they made me feel like I was, at some point, the horror was going to kick in, something was going to jump out and rip my face off. Like they managed to nail it on so many fronts that it elevated that story even further. Because on its own, I don't know. I guess because I can't relate to the sorts of things going on. I don't know whether it perhaps resonated with me as much, but because of this multifaceted approach that really it basically elevated that storytelling to another level that it didn't matter that I couldn't relate. I could understand and I appreciated, and I really enjoyed it.
I hated that game. Absolutely loathe it.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, I know it's not a popular opinion, but I did not enjoy
They didn't
my
say
time
hella
with it
enough,
at
right?
all. No, it's just I found the story to be so monotonous and boring. Like, I don't know, it's just obviously I wasn't the target audience for it, I guess, but I think like playing other, because I come to it very late after all the praise and stuff, like playing other walking simulator in air quotes do that kind of thing better, but yeah, I don't know, it's just it did not hit with me at all. What about you, Kieran?
I never played it.
Never?
Never played it at all. It sits there, and I've got to go back to it.
Do you have a spare
but
30 seconds?
I would indeed. I should. It's on my list of things to get to. I think I've got it because it has a platinum, doesn't it? I think it's on my platinums list. I think. No, it doesn't.
Yes.
It doesn't because Greg. It doesn't because everybody hates that. But yeah.
Oh,
no,
yeah,
I've
true.
got- It's on my list of. It's on my list of things to do.
Yep.
It's to go to Gone Home.
All right. What's your last one, Kieran?
But I have gone home to thank. I've gone home to thank for my single favorite gaming story ever, which is What Remains of Edith Finch. This game was fantastic, and I had no idea what to expect. Much like Gone Home, and without me playing Gone Home, I hadn't had that experience. Much of the time, I was waiting for some kind of supernatural twist or some kind of scary, story to happen or a monster to jump out, but there never was. There was some supernatural elements that were hinted at, slightly. But walking through this home of this cursed family and reliving each family member's story was something truly amazing in many ways. The way that each different story told itself. It's one of my favorite gaming moments there's a section where the character works in like a fish factory and you're deheading fish and putting them onto a line, and then it starts to telling him how his imagination grew. And at the same time you're cutting the heads off the fish and everything, you're playing a game. Like, you're walking through a kingdom as a king. And by the end of the section, the whole screen is this game where you're playing as a king, but I was playing on computer at the time, your hand is still doing the movements of removing the head from the fish, which I thought was amazing. The fact that this has shown me a character that has delusions that have removed him from the real world, and that, I was still doing the real world things. I was just completely focused on the kingdom and just the minor stories for every single member of that family. How, one of those characters blends into another game, and how different parts come together is truly amazing. And I can remember I streamed that game, and after that game finished, I sat there for a minute or two and just was completely silent, just kind of sitting there reminiscing about life, about, nothing ever hit me as much as there's a section where you're playing as a baby and you're in the bathtub, and it's a wonderful occasion until the end of that section. It's a game that I think is always going to stick with me because of the lessons it taught me and how it made me feel.
Yep. It's a game I've been meaning to get to, but obviously haven't at the moment. But yeah, I don't have anything to say on it or add to it. Do you, Paul?
Yeah, whilst I really enjoyed it for the same reasons, Kieran, that you were talking about, they nailed it on every front. And it was one that I had on kind of a short list for today.
Yeah.
Didn't quite make it for me, but I adore it for those same reasons. And yes, the connection to the Unfinished Swan was...
Yes, yeah. That made me go back and play it.
The curve... Had you played it at that point?
No, I hadn't played Unfinished Swan. Like, I literally played Edith Finch and then went and bought Unfinished Swan to play that when I read about the connection.
So yeah, I'd played Unfinished Swan, I don't know, 2012, whatever year it came out, the same year as Journey, which, I don't know, that was another one on my list as well. But it, yeah, like, I walked in, I had a foggy memory of the Unfinished Swan at that point, but when they hit that note, I picked it immediately. I pounced on it, everything started flooding back, so I think it made me even appreciate the Unfinished Swan storytelling as well as a product of what they did.
Alright, my last one, I know for a fact you two won't have anything to say about it, but this is the only game that has made me cry, like full on blubber like a baby, like, and that game is Metal Gear Solid 4. Like, growing up with Metal Gear Solid, I was so attached to Snake as a character and the whole interwoven story between all the games, and Metal Gear Solid 4 was the apex of all those storylines coming together, forming into this, like, just, like, everything. I can't form into words how much this means to me. Like, this is the top of the top for me. And, like, I don't want to spoil it. Like, the part that made me cry, I don't want to spoil, but it's just a culmination of everything coming together. And even going back to Shadow Moses, it hitting nostalgic beats and finally meeting characters, meeting together and interacting, whereas they previously hadn't, or you wouldn't think they would. It's just... I think it hits on such a deep personal level for me too, like being so connected and growing up with those characters that just make it the top for me. Like, it's hard to form into words how much it means to me.
Were you okay with it when it came out, when it was, dubbed a playable movie?
I can understand people saying that about it, but for me it's got some of the best gameplay as well of a game that just... I feel people don't give its due because of the meme of, oh, it's just a playable interactive movie. But yeah, like, it was a game made, I felt, for me, a story crafted for me personally. But yeah, like, I can't say much without spoiling it, but...
So, I'm curious. So you speak about your attachment to the IP, obviously over a long time at that point. How much of it do you think was that resulted in this impact upon you? How much of it do you think was a product of those experiences before versus
I think it,
Metal Gear 4 specifically? Or is it because what they did in Metal Gear 4, they knew people were coming in with this sort of, I won't call it baggage, but these experiences.
Yeah.
And as a result, they kind of wrote to that.
Yeah, I think that would be the
Is
case.
that
Like,
kind of...
you couldn't come to Metal Gear Solid 4 not having any previous knowledge and get anything at all out of it. Like, you had to... It was made for the fans, like, in my mind, for the fans of the series. And, like, I know it isn't a, like, pinnacle of storytelling, but for me, it's a personal... Like, it hits on such a personal level for me that shoots it up there. Like, I would, if I was writing a list of like the very best stories in games, it wouldn't be on there. But I don't know. It's just, I think nostalgia plays a big part in it as well. But it's just a combination of my experiences with it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like I can understand like people not including it on anything. It's just, for me personally, it's just up there.
Snake!
Yeah, it's definitely got lots of melodrama. Alright, thank you for joining me today, guys. I hope you've had fun and had fun listening to it. My guests today are Kieran Marchant. Where can they find
Hope you invite me back sometime. You can find me on at your boy Ringo on Twitter. Or
and
twitch.tv/Explosion Network. Get the name there.
Yeah, I'll get there, Kieran.
Get there. Let's make sure I'm just saying it. It's part of my thing.
And thank you for our very special guest, Paul James. I hope you've enjoyed being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been good.
Yep.
Obviously, I've got my own stories, but it was really interesting to hear the both of yours and how they kind of affected you guys as well. So
yep,
I enjoyed it.
Where can we find you on the internet and everything that you do?
So Twitter, you can find me at PaulJamesP2. And then the website itself is player2.net.au, like I spoke about before. We've got a Patreon, we've got the YouTube channel. We're spreading our wings slowly.
Yep, go over and support their Patreon and even just check out all the work, because they do fantastic articles and videos and stuff over on their website. I'm a massive fan of theirs.
Wait, so you're saying your wings didn't just like appear overnight? They didn't just like fucking appear?
I woke up and I was laying on top of them and it was really uncomfortable.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's just hope your co-worker doesn't rip them off your back and throw them into a bottomless chasm.
Yeah.
You can email the show for theme and topic suggestions at don't@explosionnetwork.com. You can rate and review us on iTunes. If you don't like iTunes, like me personally, you can just spread us around with word of mouth. Tell your friends.
Sorry, that sounded like you said spread us around with murder.
No, with word of mouth. Because we don't do much advertising, so every little bit helps with you spreading the word of the Explosion Network. You can find everything we do at explosionnetwork.com, including shows, our D&D show, Tales of Tholden, our classics, Platinum and Pleasure Explosion. We do lots of streaming over at twitch.tv/Explosion Network. And that's been this week's episode of Top 5 with Nick. Thank you all, and bye.